Greetings, everyone. It is 7:30, and we have a really good discussion for you tonight. And we don't have the filmmaker, but we will be joined by Vic Trevino, who is the lead actor in this film, The Good Wolf, which I assume you all have seen because you've all done your homework, right? Good students. You've done your homework and you don't have to get a test. That's the best kind of homework there is, right? And today we have with us my friend Adam Rocca. Adam runs the San Antonio Film Festival. He also teaches film in a high school and works really hard and has done an incredible job at this really wonderful festival. So I'm just really happy to have him with us. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm excited to be here. Thank you. And I got to say, props to you guys for doing this since the beginning of, or I guess the beginning of COVID. It seems such like a cool thing for your community, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, Adam, I want to talk about like why you thought it was a great idea many years ago to run a film festival.
That's a good question. Well, I was going to a community college, San Antonio Community College, and I made a film. It was an experimental melting Super 8 like everybody does, and these crazy fun images with your buddies kind of film. And it screened here in San Antonio at the oldest Latino film festival in the nation called
Yeah,
the Cine Festival.
big
And
deal.
so I was excited about it because I think, either heard about it the year before or been to it. I don't remember. It's been so long ago, but and so I went to what I thought was going to be like a major thing, and I had no idea about any of this stuff. And I just went to the screening and I picked up the little magazine program, and it said it's over, not in the main screening area, but it's in the other screening room across the street. And so I went to it, and it was just me and the projectionist and no AC, and this is in the middle of July.
Hmm.
So I was like, wow, this is exciting, but only I didn't know that wow, I'm sad. Okay, didn't really meet my expectation, but I was, happy to be a part of it. And then lo and behold, in the fall, I got an invitation in the mail to participate in the San Diego Latino Film Festival, and I was 19, and I asked all my relatives for money to buy a train ticket, and I took the Amtrak out there, and I didn't know anything. And I really had no clue about like anything. So I just showed up with like a toothbrush, I think. And I showed up to the filmmaker's office, and I said, "Hey, I'm one of the filmmakers." And they said, "Well, you didn't tell us you're going to show up, buddy." And I said, "Well, listen, do you have a floor I can sleep on?" And they're like, "What?" So, anyways, they put me up in somebody's house. I was so grateful for that experience. And I got to watch how they did their film festival, which was at 5 different locations, including Tijuana in San Diego, beautiful San Diego. And just, I was like 19, so I got to drink at the bars, I guess, and like, be a kid and be stupid and watch. And, at the time I would go to in San Antonio, there used to be a place called Taco Land. So I'd, you know, underage drinking there and hang out and party with the bands and have fun. And to me, it seemed like film was just like music in the sense that it was indie and you could go anywhere and you can participate and, whatever. And so I thought, well, let me get with my film teacher that I took a Super 8 class at San Antonio College with Fred Weiss. He's passed now, but so he's like, yeah, I guess you could do that. That sounds cool. And so I put a flyer together. And at the time, I think that movie, uh, Glenn Ross had come out, and I
Mhm.
was a fan of that movie. And so I think we had our first place prize was a miniature accordion that I got at the flea market. No, you know what? It was my super cool lowrider bicycle from Sears, from the 70s that had that little banana seat with the, I
Hmm.
forgot, like the yellow submarine painter guy. I forgot his name, but and that was the first place prize. And the second place was a set of steak knives. And I think the third place was the accordion or some silly thing. And anyways, you know, it was really just a beer festival. And I think we had 13 entries, and I sent these to all the film schools around the country, and they were on VHS, and it was so fun. And I think I bought 10 kegs of beer, and I charged $5 to get in, like a Fugazi show. And then we had 13 movies. So we had played the films, I think, starting at 6 or whatever in the evening on Friday or Saturday. I don't even remember. And then we had, it was just a drink fest basically. And like a bunch of bands played and people showed up for that. And it was just a fun time. And I just thought, well, I guess this will be something to do. And then so finally got serious. It became a nonprofit in 2009. My wife said, you need to grow up, buddy, and figure out, stop partying. If you're going to do this for real, you need to take it serious. And that's what happened. So,
Mm.
and it's been fun. I mean, it's work. It's a lot of work, and it's a passion that, I share with a lot of people around the world. And we have our staff basically works for free. I mean, I give them some peanuts and some donuts, but it's basically they have an affliction for cinema as well. So here we are, you know.
Well, and thank you for doing that and serving your community and serving everybody and having you've just done an incredibly great job with running your festival. So for anybody who might be going to San Antonio this summer, when are you doing your next festival?
It's going to be a 2 or 3 day show. It's going to be the beginning of August, the first weekend in August. It'll be probably Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to have a drive-in component and 2 days of in-person screening. And we're going to screen films from 2020. And just like we're going to watch the film this evening or discuss it, they're filmmakers that will be guaranteed to be in person.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them all and say, dude, I need to see your plane ticket if we're going to screen your movie anyways, because it's so lame to go to film festivals or to screenings and the filmmakers aren't there. I know they have lives and whatnot and things happen, but it's a better experience, I think, overall for everybody if you get to hear the words of the filmmakers or, what happened behind the shots, and that's so fun for me to participate in.
And also hanging out with them afterwards and having dinner or having some drinks with them.
Absolutely.
To me, that's the best part of doing a festival is like, and the more you do it, the less you have time to have lunch or dinner with the filmmakers. Is like everything. There's so much else going on, but those are the moments I've treasured over the years, and sort of thinking back. So, tell me about this film, the Good Wolf. When did you find out about this? Because this is a San Antonio film. Did you know about it as it was being made?
I'm kind of oblivious to other things besides myself. I think my focus is doing the film festival, and then the other hat is turning it backwards, is being a high school cinema teacher.
Uh,
And so, I mean, there's social media, but I just kind of like things when I can, and I kind of just focus on those two things, honestly. And so I do know that Will Shipley, we had screened his film, and I think you guys screened it as well. Back in, I don't even know what year it was.
It was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been maybe over 10 years. And that guy was a great filmmaker. I loved his first film, Mentirosa, I think it's what it's called. And I just was like, dude, we got this. I, was looking down our entries, submissions. I was like, I want to watch this one. I'm going to put it at the end,
Mhm.
kind of, as a dessert kind of thing.
Yeah, you know,
You know.
people don't sort of figure out how we do this when we're screening things. It's like, you know, there's the vegetables and then there's the ice cream, you know, and it's like you look at what you're supposed to do that night, and you know, and it's not, you know, I love like watching all the films, but you know, if you have a 3-hour film about some difficult, you just know that it's going to be like, you know, and then you have something you just, I also know that if I watch experimental film too late at night, I'll fall asleep. So it's like I have to schedule when you watch things.
Yeah, is this a weekend film?
Yeah.
Have I, you know, I try not to know anything about the movies, just like at the movie theaters. I don't try not to watch any trailers. I just like to go in, you know, and we have our team and they'll say, oh, well, you got to check this one out. So I'll put it in the queue like,
Yeah.
oh, that's going to be a weekend film or whatever, you know, or like, I can't wait to tell everybody about this other film I just saw. Oh my God, you know, or whatever.
Well, I see we got Vic here.
Hey
Uh,
guys, how are
hey,
you?
how you doing?
Good, good.
Look at your red background there.
Got all colors.
So Vic, it is a great role. I mean, this whole film to me is based on your performance. I mean, it is so good, and also the filmmaking is just so beautiful, and it's so, you know, in terms of the filmmaking, this was a really small crew. You know, that this was, you know, usually on a feature film you'll have a whole bunch of people around, but there was a kind of intimacy that you can see in the film that comes from a kind of, you know, a small crew, and everybody's being very sort of tight, and I think that really kind of works really well. So Vic, how did you find out about this? Did you know about the film? Do you know about Will? I mean, did you talk about it? Did he write it for you, or, you know, how did
No,
this come about?
no, it was actually nothing like that. Like Adam, I've been teaching cinema arts for a while now and theater arts to a whole new generation of storytellers. I love teaching,
And where do
but
you teach, Vic?
I've taught in a variety of different venues. I've taught at Our Lady of Lake University as
Hmm.
a drama professor, and I've also taught at like performance arts academies, things of that sort.
Hmm.
Uh, but you do reach a point as an artist where, although you love the teaching of the craft, you also miss doing it. There was, I think it was the summer of 2019, 2018. And I thought, I had been here for a short while from LA already. And there's got to be some other people that feel as passionate as I do about, visual storytelling. And so I just started Googling, and I was looking at the Texas Film Commission, and I came across a film somewhere on that website. I think it was called, Adam just mentioned it. I think it was called Mentiroso, Adam, or Mentiroso, right?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and I loved the director's take
Hmm.
on how he handled the camera, the visual storytelling, the story. I just fell in love with that piece, and I thought, who did this? And I did some research on the director, Will Shipley, and I was like, I need to find out who this is. And I looked it up, and Will Shipley, that was a Saturday. And on that Saturday, I saw that Will was holding auditions for this project called The
Hmm.
Good Wolf, on that Saturday, and I was like,
That's
it was
great.
about 5 o'clock, and I think auditions were going till 6, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to make this, and so I did. It was a Morgan's Wonderland on the other side of town. I thought, what do I have to lose? I'm not doing anything today anyway, and it was pre-COVID, so it was nothing to worry about. I went out there. I kind of felt, I don't know. I wasn't sure I was right for this. I read a monologue, and I really couldn't tell what was going on. But as any performance artist does. I created my own scenario. I created my own what if. I created my own moment before, and I just kind of gave it my own take. And when I went in and I met Will, the manner in which he used words to describe the story and the manner in which he so articulately described who this character was, I immediately felt so comfortable with him, and I immediately connected with this guy. And I asked, may I do it again? And he said, please. And so I took a moment, and in this scene, my character jumps off the train. He is in search of food, refuge, shelter, that sort of thing. And he comes across the kid, the young boy. And I just connected with that piece, and I did it. And Will looked at me and he didn't say anything, and I was getting kind of nervous. I was like, I can do it again. He goes, no, that's actually, that's fine. He goes, well, what's your availability, and blah, blah, that sort of thing. And so, and that's kind of how it started. Then after that, we had a couple of meetings at a coffee shop at the Pearl. I met some of the other boys, the other two boys. It was it was a small, as you said, Bart, intimate cast, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. It was such a labor of love. No one, I mean, we weren't doing this obviously for money. We were doing this because we wanted to tell this story as best we could. I mean, there were days when I was working audio and holding the boom pole. There was days when Jack was doing the same thing. There was days when I was holding this. And it was so hot. It was so hot. And the cicadas wouldn't stop buzzing. So we had to be on cicada patrol so that when we would shoot, I mean, you know, things of that sort. And living in that tree house, it was just, but Will made it all so palatable. I mean, it was all, he was so motivating, inspiring. He was an actor's director. He allowed you to play. You felt safe within the confines of what he was asking you to do, that sort of thing. It was just it was a very, very positive, pleasant experience. I worked in a prison when I was in college, and I remembered working with some of the trustees and some of the guys who just vouched, and they told me, they said, I didn't do it, but I'm here. I didn't do it. And I remember the look on their faces, and I remember just that void that I could see in their eyes, that void, you know, and I remembered that, and I played around with that. And that was some of what I used in connecting with this character. But working with Will was just absolutely, I mean, it's his story. I mean, he's directly responsible for everything that you see when that screen unfolds.
Did he talk to you about like where that story came from? You know, where did it, you know, is it something in his background, somebody he knew, or any, did he, or, you know?
From what I remember, it's a story that he had been playing with for a while, if I remember this correctly. And he had been shaping it and playing around with it. There were days when we would read a scene and he says, I have an idea, let's do this and instead of that, or things of that sort, small things, and we would try it. We would shoot some scenes, you know, in different ways on some days, just to kind of see what's working here, what isn't, that sort of thing. It was the whole idea of the wolf image, and the good wolf, and the difference between the good wolf and the bad wolf. I had asked him early on about that, and he didn't tell me this, but I got the feeling, okay, let's not divulge that answer quite so soon. And I'm glad he did that,
Hmm.
because the day I discovered it on screen, I mean, on camera for the first time, it was,
It's a
I
moment.
thought it
It's a
was a
great
moment.
moment.
It really was a moment. And I got it. It's like, I know what he's talking about. I know what this means now. I remember that standing underneath that oak tree. I was like, I get it. I get it. Yeah. He's such an amazing, wonderful storyteller. He's so talented, so gifted. Yeah.
So what was it like meeting the kid who played Sam the first time? And did you in pre-production, I mean, obviously you rehearsed together, but because at its core, the film is the relationship between the two of you and the chemistry between the two of you. And how did that start and how did that develop?
When I first met Jack, he was a sweet kid. We got along really well. We didn't know each other very well, but I think we both understood that in order to make this story work, we were going to have to find a way to connect in a sense. Jack was performing in a musical at the San Pedro Playhouse. Um, and on weekends when he was there, sometimes he'd stay later. And we would connect and talk about all kinds of stuff, not just the project, but just all kinds of things in terms of, who we are as people. Hey, what is it you want to do when you get out of school? Dreams, challenges, things of that sort. I really admired him, and I thought he's such a cool kid, and he's very talented, and he was very giving as well too. I remember there were times when um, we'd be shooting like my POV or his POV, and he was very giving as an actor. So unselfish. He said, I can stand here for you. I can stand here for you. And I was like, okay.
I,
So,
I
so
have I have to say,
okay.
Vic, your performance is very spiritual. The opening of the film is incredible because it's very primal in the sense that you approach the kid like, hey, it's cool, and you just kind of, I want to also say this, that Bart, when the for me, for independent film, when a movie starts floating, it's that magicalness. Like you can tell this is on. It's going to be like a cool film. And it was that point where you guys went back and forth, and the kid says to you, "Hey, let me ask you these questions about the jail," and he's like, "It's real. It's
Yeah.
just a real moment."
Yeah.
I love that scene.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree.
And I
Totally.
think that scene is so important to start because because the film is about your relationship. And at the very beginning, at that moment, you know your character is frightened, hurt, hungry, and all of that, and this person could have easily turned you in.
That's
and
right.
and there's all this fear, anxiety, and he's afraid of you in the beginning, and that the two of you can kind of connect. And at the very beginning, like, have that sense of connection that sort of carries you through the whole film.
That's right.
And that scene at the beginning. And was the film shot in sequence, or was that like early on in the
No, it
shooting?
was not shot in
Wow.
sequence. Yeah, it was not shot in sequence. And you, I'm sure you understand what that means in terms of complexity and in terms of really trying to realize, okay, where are we emotionally?
Emotionally, right. It's like
The
here we
story.
are in the movie, I got that, but like, what happened before? What angst am I dealing with at this moment? What am I afraid of? What do I want?
Right.
There are all these how do you sort of get in your head? And it's really particular, like, it's that scene. There are like four like really key scenes that sort of define um that relationship and make us feel the characters. There are some films when you watch people, and sometimes with films when you feel things. And
That's right.
I think this
Absolutely,
this
Bart.
is one that you feel, and that comes from both Will in setting the environment and shooting it in that really kind of interesting way. I mean, in terms of just the look of the film. I mean, it's all takes place, with very few exceptions, in this like patch in the middle of no place. And where is that patch in the middle of no place?
It's in the far deep south side of it's outside the San Antonio city limits, past, oh my God, what street is this? It's like Mission Road. You keep going way out there. There's nothing but just uh, pasture, ranches, little old farms and stuff like this. Will had met I believe it was a police officer who had a house out there in the country with several acres, and he granted Will permission to shoot on one side of the house, far from the house actually, and that's where we built the treehouse. We lived in that treehouse for quite a while. It was the first day that we were on location and we were looking at it. This was the middle of summer. It was really, really hot.
You mean it gets hot in Texas in the summer?
Go figure. Go figure.
What were you expecting?
I know. Well, what I wasn't expecting was this, Bart. So we're on the ground. I'm looking at this tree, such a beautiful oak tree, I thought, and Will had already pretty much, built most of the tree house by himself, the fort, and he had done it alone. I was amazed, first of all, that he had completed all of this, that much of the structure alone. And I'm walking around the tree, and there's this big old knot in the tree, this hole that kind of goes inside the trunk. And this is a massive trunk. And I see something move, and I'm turning around, I'm looking towards the side. I'm like, Will, can you come here a second? And there was a snake, this thick and long, and it was slithering inside the knot right there. And Will says, I hope you're not afraid of snakes. Well, he never showed himself again. I guess he was camera shy, but it was only on that first day. There were just a couple of times when we were shooting and I'm sitting up there in the treehouse thinking, if that buddy comes out here, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but hey, go with it. Just go with it.
Hey, I am afraid of snakes. I would have not, I would have had a real problem with that. Speaking of that, the one scene that just really, I wouldn't say annoyed me, but it was the scene with the dog. I always hate to see like bad things happen to animals. And obviously the dog was not hurt in that scene, but it just
it was disturbing. It was disturbing. Yeah, I know. It was a mechanical toy. It was a mechanical toy that was wound up inside this like burlap bag. It was wound up and then made to sound like a dog whining or crying or things of that sort. And the boy who played, the bad kid.
Damien's his name?
Yeah, Damien. The nicest guy and very talented. We were really fortunate to have both of those boys on set, but his performance was extremely believable, and I think I think he did what he had to do as far as the character was concerned, because it really it turned a lot of people's stomachs in terms of doing that. But yeah,
but it's an important moment in the film for his character, for the other kid's character, because it's the moment when he says like, I can't, that's it, done with him.
Right.
I mean, he sort of knew it up to that moment, but that's an important thing. And then of course what happens with that relationship triggers what happens at the end of the film. So it's like an important moment. As much as I really was not happy about it, I can understand why you wrote it in the script, and and what is it? So I'm curious, since it wasn't shot in order, what was shot first and what was shot last?
Well, some of the earlier scenes were the scenes in which we're at Jack's mom's house when he's inviting me inside so that I can
take a shower.
Take a shower. And then his mom comes in and I have to jump out the window. And also when I'm teaching Jack about how to cut the grass, the lawnmower, and that sort of thing, and that was also shot uh, within that first week. And then it was the beginning of the story, in which I'm still in my prison garb and I stumble across the fort and I meet Jack for the first time. Those were the first couple of scenes. Uh, as we progressed more and more into the story, um, we dealt with some of the scenes that were a bit more emotionally complicated. Um, a lot of the chase scenes, the biggest scenes, the scenes towards the end when,
Scene when you reveal your story.
yeah, that was done. Yeah, that was a really, really long day of shooting. I left at about 4 a.m. that night, just really spent. I was just emotionally spent. I remember preparing for that scene, and Jack, and I thought, this kid has to go to, he needs to go to bed. It's close to midnight. This kid has to go to bed. So we shot all of Jack's stuff first, and then we shot my stuff.
So we
Later.
shot your stuff in that scene without him there so you're right. So you had, which is
Yeah.
not, I mean, yeah.
Which was fine. It was late and he needed to be in bed.
No, I understand the practicality of it. It's clearly better in a scene like that to look in somebody's eyes as you're talking to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, for part of that scene he was, but there were some scenes in which he wasn't, and that's fine. We made it work, that sort of thing.
So it's a little bit different than doing, say, Pee-wee's Playhouse, right? So we have to get into this. How did you get to be on Pee-wee's Playhouse?
That's awesome, dude. That's so cool.
And do people come up to you on the street and say, "Hey, aren't you the guy from Pee-wee's Playhouse?"
Sometimes. Sometimes. What's today's secret word, Ricardo? I had been working in LA, mostly just doing commercial work, pursuing my graduate degree at UCLA in film, theater, and television. And I remember getting an audition for this gig on Pee-wee's Playhouse. I had never really seen the show, to be honest with you, up to that point. My brother had seen it. Remember one Saturday, my brother was watching Pee-wee's Playhouse. It was a Saturday morning. And I remember stumbling by the living room and saying, "Mark, what are you watching?" He goes, "It's Pee-wee's Playhouse. It's really cool. You should see it." I'm like, okay. I don't know. I was in a hurry and I just left it at that. And then my agent calls and says, "So you have this audition for Pee-wee's Playhouse and you're playing a role of a soccer player." And I remember going to CBS and I was like, the line, the number of guys that were in line to audition, I was like, this is really, no, no. And so I remember calling my agent saying that, I don't know if I'm right for this and blah, blah, blah. I think I was just making excuses. He says, "Victor, you're an actor. You have nothing else going on today. Just do it." And so I did. And so then I auditioned. I read for the casting director. About 6 months later, I read for Paul Reubens, who's Pee-wee. I remember Paul was super nice, and I was really nervous to meet him for the first time. And here I was, this graduate student with an MFA in acting from UCLA, and I'm doing this role, and he says, "Do me a favor. I need you to forget everything about classical theater. I need you to forget everything you've been taught at UCLA or wherever." He says, "Instead, I want you to be as big as you can. You can't be too big for this character, all right?" And after that, I felt like I had permission to just play with it, like in a really huge way, and I did. And then I started I did it in Spanish, and I did it in English, and I did it in Spanglish.
Mhm.
And then I didn't hear anything. I laughed, didn't hear anything for a couple of months. And then they were narrowing down the list of Ricardos. And at the last callback, I think there were like 5 guys or whatever. And I met Lynn, Miss Yvonne at that callback, and Paul. And we did some improvs together. And I did forget everything that I was taught at UCLA. And I just had fun with Lynn and had fun with Paul. And it was like being in a master's improv class. In fact, my entire experience working on that show with all of those all of those actors, such a talented group of artists. I felt like I was like in a master's class in improv or stand up every time I went to work, and I felt so blessed to be around them. You know, it's like we all had like our own little uh, these little figure dolls from the show.
Mm.
I remember there were times like between takes, we take our dolls and we create our own little stories.
The art
So
direction in that
that's
show
all.
was also just amazing, you know, and obviously you guys did a great job. It's just such a memorable moment in time, you know, and that television could have this show that was both a children's show and an adult show, and it worked in both ways, and it really played with people's imagination in a very, like, really profound way. But okay, so this is great. Okay, so you teach, Adam teaches, and I teach, right? And then you're in the situation where like a major role that comes to your life, and the first thing they say is like, don't throw out everything they taught you. So how do you use that when you're teaching?
You feel my pain, Bart. Yeah, absolutely. And there are times when you just have to let go, you know, just let go of all the stuff that you've been taught and just free yourself. And so essentially you're not really forgetting things that you've been taught. You're just using those things in a different way.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
where that's a good thing. I mean, there are times, you know, when you're teaching, you have to quantify things that you can sort of have in your head, and sometimes they're not exactly the right things.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, Adam, do you feel that way?
I tell them, don't listen to me or look at my work. It's just do as I say. That's the best way.
That always works out.
That's a good philosophy, Adam.
So Vic, tell me about what the film scene in San Antonio is like from an actor's perspective. And then Adam, I want you to tell me what it is from your perspective. Because I live in Dallas and I know a few people in San Antonio. I know, you know, like Yaki, who shoots a lot of work in San Antonio, and a few other people, but you know, I'm not there. What is it like?
Well, this past year has been quite different, needless to say, and I think we've all experienced a lot of the same in terms of the work, in terms of availability. Um, but I think on the other hand, going through this past year and dealing with the pandemic has really taught us to become even more creative and expand on what we already have, and to become a little bit more resourceful in terms of how we can still tell stories, i.e., you know, film them, edit them, distribute them, things of that sort. We're just doing them in different ways. I miss going to the movies. I miss sitting down in those dark theaters and auditoriums. I don't think nothing quite, you know, can replace that. But I think the way we tell stories is changing, and I think the way we market and distribute them is changing. Things of that sort. Um, I think more and more, and these are some of the things I tell my own students in terms of, you know, now you can be your own like studio in a sense. You create, you distribute, you market, things of that sort. I remember when I was in LA in the late 80s and 90s, it was such a different place. I remember being told, you know, so what are you? Have you considered changing your name? Are you Greek? Are you Italian? Are you Mexican? Like, what are you? I don't know what you are. And that confused me at first because, the color of my skin seemed to place me within very specific, distinct categories as far as casting was concerned. I played a lot of gangbanger roles. I played a lot of lawn guys. I played a lot of blah, 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 whatever. I remember calling my agent and saying, Chris, I'm done. I'm done. Uh, he had called me once and said, there's this movie with Edward James Olmos. It's called American Me, and they want to read you at Universal. I said, no, I don't want to have, I said, Chris, I have worn every color bandana I can think of already. I said, I'm done. He goes, no, well, Edward James Olmos, and I'd worked with Eddie in theater and in different venues and stuff like that and everything. He says, he specifically asked for you and he wants you to read the role of Cheetah, blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, okay, I'll read it. But I was already feeling, I don't know if bitter is the right word, Bart, but I was feeling different about how I was being seen by these industry execs, and by that I mean the casting people. There were very, very few casting people of color during that time. There was Bob Moronis, I remember, who cast La Bamba, who cast Spanish network television commercials. I really feel like if it wasn't for the Spanish national commercials that I cast, I was doing really well commercially. I did several every year. They were all in Spanish, but they paid the rent, they paid the bills. It was really good money during that time. And it gave me the freedom to focus on theater because there's no money in theater, but I mean, that's my passion. I love theater. I love the stage, working in live theater. So I was able to do that. I became involved with Nosotros, Ricardo Montalban, who was a regular on many things, but one of the last things he did was Fantasy Island, and he created an organization called Nosotros, located in Hollywood. And it was, the purpose of Nosotros was to create a voice for those performance artists who felt that they were underserved, that they weren't being heard or seen, things of that sort. We peacefully demonstrated. We never used or resorted to violence of any sort, but and we brought in people from the industry so that those who were interested in casting could learn about that. Those who were interested in directing or producing could learn about that. And slowly, we started having these groups and organizations of minorities who are involved with all of these. Whereas before, this had never existed. It had never really existed on that level before. I'm very pleased when I turn on the tube and I see people of color, not just in front of the camera, but when I look at the credits and I'm thinking, that's why we did that in the 80s and the 90s. That's why we did that. These kids that are on there now, I'm thinking, good for you. Good for you. It's still in existence. Nosotros is still in existence. And I think I think there's still more work to be done in terms of the stories we want to tell. And I'm not just talking about Latino, or Latinx. I'm talking about all of us together, as a community of human beings, things of that sort. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't even know how I got off on this tangent.
No, that's really great. I do a workshop in my filmmaking class about casting, and I give them these like a bunch of headshots of people, and I say you're casting like character, their good friend, the gardener, the this and that, and then I put them in groups, and I say, okay, who are your choices? And then when they say this, I say, so why do you think this person is the gardener? And we have a discussion about how your biases and how you see the world is perpetrated in the film, and what does it say when you do that and other people do that.
That's right.
And the light bulb goes off about understanding that as a filmmaker making a casting decision, you are not only telling your story, but you're putting an image on film that resonates with people, and you can do something that's really good, or you can do something that is just continuing the same problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So Adam, do you want to talk a little bit about like San Antonio film from your perspective? And I saw on the credits that the film commission like helped in the making of this film. Do you think they gave them money?
That's a good question. No, you know what? I think Will did get a grant.
Huh?
I think they have like it's a tiny grant. I think that at that time was $1,500. I think I remember that, and I think I remember that he did get that. I mean, I get their emails.
Yeah.
The San Antonio Film Commission, and I think they do a great job. But they've been working, or they've been in commission, I guess, since like.
Wait a minute. Carol says they got a $5,000 grant from the San Antonio Film Commission. So
All right,
thank you.
okay, that's great.
Then, and it's like $5,000 on a film like that is a big deal. I mean, it really is.
That's a big deal for film, and I mean, yeah, for sure, absolutely. For us, it's a big deal as well, and we're grateful for what they do offer. And so, as far as filmmaking in San Antonio, I think it's I mean, the laptop and even the phones nowadays have the ability to, if you want to tell the story, to pick up a camera and then go make it happen. I mean, my high school class essentially is that. And what I tell them in the beginning is, I just demystify everything. It seemed like when I went to, not to bash the film school in Austin, but when I went to film school, to me, I kind of felt like it was this big thing. And I just didn't feel that way when I teach it. I just thought, you know what? I don't even tell the kids anything about the camp. I just say, go videotape the campus and show kids, if they were coming to the campus for the first time, go show them what this campus is. And so I just basically make them do that. And I tell them, look, Tim Duncan doesn't just play basketball for 48 minutes a night, for 82 times a year. I think I would guess that he does that in his sleep, when he wakes up, when he goes to sleep, when he's in traffic, and so I think, how's that connect? I think filmmaking, you just kind of figure things out. And the way I learn.
Wait a minute, Adam, I have to say, as a Dallas Mavericks fan, we do not need to hear anything about Tim Duncan.
Dallas is a great dynasty as well,
I'm sorry, but Adam, the truth of it is that years ago there was a difference in that the equipment was, you had to learn enough about how to use a camera to just expose something, and so there was a kind of, it was not as accessible to everybody. And as cameras have gotten smaller and cheaper, and with your phone, the level of accessibility is different. So there was a time when just like using a light meter was a difficult. I mean, it took something to get something. Russ, you had a question. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, I can't see my text. If I have to say it myself, it'll probably take me a half an hour. But Victor, I was wondering if you as an actor thought about whether or not uh, James was going to be caught. I mean, imminently. I mean, within days. Or did you actually let yourself think about freedom? Or did you not think it was important to you as an actor?
That's a good question, Russ, and thank you for asking it. I think as the actor, I did think about that, and I did wonder, you know, am I going to get away with this? Is James going to get away with this? And I thought that possibility existed until the end of the story, when the ultimate happens, and because I don't want Jack to have to, experience the same things I did. I choose to go back. I choose to get caught to save him from having to go through that same kind of ordeal. It it sounds so simplistic in hearing myself respond to this question, but it was actually quite complicated, and it at the time, and it took me some time to kind of just let it sift and kind of like think about from scene to scene how I was feeling about this. There were days, Russ, when I would leave the set, as James, just not sure, feeling insecure, fearful, but also feeling like I didn't want Jack to see that, things of that sort. During that time, I'm an avid reader. Um, I was reading all kinds of things that I could on prisons, stories from prisoners, things of that sort. And I came across several different stories that really, really sparked an interest and kind of like had an impact on the way I was seeing this guy. I mean, this guy was spending time in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. And when you listen, there were a couple of YouTube videos that I was listening to. There was a couple of guys who spent almost all of their lives incarcerated until they were vindicated. And then it was revealed that they were innocent. But to hear them tell the story, and to hear the that sense of, it's not pain and it wasn't remorse. I'm not sure what the word is, Russ, but there's a void within them that's difficult to explain or describe. And it was that void or that gap that I think kind of lived in James. I mean, I'm thinking about, the relationship I had with my own father and the relationship that most boys or most men have with their fathers. And to have your father, of all people, do something like that to you, blame you for something that you didn't do. It has to have an impact. It really does. And then you're dealing with this young kid who doesn't have a father. He doesn't have a father figure. And I think James can relate to that as well too.
And
By the
think,
way, I wanted to say also, I thought you did a great job of, or the, through James in being a father to the young man, but I felt that the character was being the father that he wished that he'd had.
yeah,
And both of those things were conveyed.
absolutely.
Thank you.
It is the, as I was thinking about, we're talking about, like, does your character think about freedom? I think so much of James in that is being a father to this boy and truly enjoying that relationship.
Yeah.
Teaching him how to do things, and the grilling and sort of having that relationship he never had. In a sense, those moments, those months out there together were the life that he never had.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. I remember when we had meals, when we weren't shooting, and Jack and I would just like take a break, and we would share meals together. And several of us would. And it was during those times when the meals were not by any means fancy or exorbitant or anything like that, but that wasn't the point. Uh, There's something about sharing a meal with these young boys and, and, and with Will, we just connected, in a different kind of way. It was like, and I think that connection, that rapport that we were creating off screen kind of seeped into the work as well too, in terms of who we were becoming on screen. And so I think that was a cool thing. And Will had a large part to do with that. A large part to do with that. He was just, I can't say enough good things about this guy.
I got to add in the film how you guys suspended disbelief of him eating. You have the scene in the opening scene, and then later on that night he brings him the food with the tent and
Right.
so on and so forth. And you ask for you buy how much for the pots. I like that because in movies I always think, well, what about this other thing? And it never is resolved.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to make that point. And I think this is a great, master film. Here's how I rate movies is how many songs do they stick in the movie and how well do we know that song? Because it's not till like 45 minutes into your film is there a song. And to me, that is master filmmaking because they don't use the crux of pull the nostalgia wagon out.
Yeah.
And here's this song, and we can all like enjoy the feeling.
And that's because it's a good performance. I mean, what happens when you have that music try to pump up the emotion of the scene is because the director doesn't trust the performance that he has to convey it, and they use the music as a crutch to
Agreed.
make that happen.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. So Vic, what are you working on now? Because this was a bit ago. What's going on with you aside from your teaching, right?
I am teaching. I'm working on a memoir, and I hope to turn this into like a little bit of a webisode. And this has nothing to do with the Good Wolf, although it does have to do with like this guy who used to be in prison. It just happens that he used to be in prison, but his story is it's an amazing story, I'm 12 chapters into this. I meet with him on alternate Saturdays. I travel to Austin to meet with him. He's not doing well health-wise right now. I record our visits. We talk about all kinds of things. I wasn't sure what this was going to be at first, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be a story about a young man who's in search of trying to find himself because he never knew what it was to be himself because of his abusive father. When I decided that I could do this, because this had been in the back of my mind for so long, I wasn't sure I could do this for a lot of reasons. 2 summers ago, I started doing this, and it just started with a simple recording and a notepad. And I went home and I put it on my desk and I didn't touch it. And 12 chapters later, I can't stop writing. That's what I'm working on right now. I don't know what this is going to be. I just got to get it out and then I'll decide what it's going to be. But it's something I got to get out, if that makes any sense.
Well, thanks so much, Vic. Thank you. It was really great. Adam, what are you working on, other than getting the end of the semester over and getting ready for your next festival?
A friend of mine wrote a short film. It's a comedy, and I'm going to try to shoot it this summer.
Great. Well, guys, thank you for spending an hour with us. It was really wonderful. Adam, thank you for joining us and suggesting this film. Vic, it's a pleasure to meet you. And if I ever have a role that you were from, I would love to work with you. You just seem like somebody who just is really quite wonderful, not only on camera, but wonderful to be with and hang out
Oh,
with.
thank you, Bart. I would welcome that opportunity, Bart. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you. And thank you, Adam. And thank you, Russ. And thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Great acting. Wow.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
And we'll see you all next week.